What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to be going over my #1 tip for street photography settings. Now it's a pretty simple one. All it is using auto ISO. Now I still use manual mode. I still manually set all my other settings. I just use auto ISO. You're going to get most benefit from this at night time if you're a night shooter. But it still works at daytime as well. So you want to dial in all your other settings. So if you're shooting at night time, I always like to shoot with the widest possible aperture. So I'll set that first. If I'm using a 1.4 or a 1.2, I'll set the aperture to 1.2, and then I'll set my shutter speed to allow for whatever focal length I'm using. So if I'm shooting on a 135, I always like to shoot the same shutter speed as that focal length or a little bit higher, just so you don't get the blurry images and stuff like that. So if I'm using a 135, I'll use 1/135. If I'm using a 35, I'll use 1/35, and then I'll use my exposure compensation dial to do the rest. So I like to shoot pretty underexposed. I don't know if you've seen any of my Instagram photos. Everything's real dark, moody, a lot of contrast, a lot of blacks. So I like to shoot between 1.7 and 2 stops underexposed. Now I'm not sure if this works for Canon or Nikon or any other cameras, but with Sony, if you've got auto ISO set and you turn up your exposure compensation dial or turn it down, it'll actually adjust the minimum ISO. If you're shooting at night time and you've got your exposure set to 0, and let's say your ISO is like 800 or something like that, then if you turn it down to -1.7 to -2, it'll actually drop your ISO down. So that's a good way to combat noise and high ISOs at night time. If you've adjusted all your other settings to work well at night, that will bring down your ISO. And then all you need to worry about is taking photos. The ISO will do its own thing. If you need to get a shot which is really dark, it'll shoot at the minimum possible ISO that it can. And obviously you've got your shutter speed as low as you can, your aperture as low as you can, so your ISO is always going to be as low as possible. You don't need to worry about anything. All you need to do is worry about catching the moments that you want to catch out in the street. I know people rave about using manual mode and adjusting all your settings manually, and they shit on people who use anything auto, but it's a game changer. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there which do use it, but for anyone who doesn't, give it a go. You won't regret it. As I said, it works better for nighttime, through the day, depending on what kind of lens you're shooting with. You don't really need to worry about keeping your ISO down. Especially for me, I like to shoot wide open. So through the daytime, doesn't really make too much of a difference. But it still helps not to have to worry about your settings. Once you've got them all dialed in, you just worry about shooting. So give it a go. Let us know down in the comments what you think, or if you've got a better tip, let us know down in the comments and I'll try that one out. But that's it for this one, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.